Welcome back to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm your host, Keith Downey, and we're thrilled to welcome our guest this morning, who seamlessly blends physical and spiritual wellness. Joe Jarrell is a fitness coach who incorporates his deep Catholic faith into his approach to health. Joe believes that strengthening the body is important as well as nourishing the soul, and we're excited to dive into how his unique perspective can inspire us to achieve a well-rounded lifestyle. Good morning and welcome to the show, Joe.
Good morning, Keith. Thanks so much for having me. Super excited to be here.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us. I did like 5 push-ups before the show, so I feel prepared for this.
Good. 5 more than you would have otherwise done, so I'm happy.
That's right. Oh my goodness! But you share, please share us or share with us a little bit about your journey into fitness coaching and how your Catholic faith has influenced your approach.
Yeah. So I was not going the route of fitness coaching. I was one of those guys who didn't really know what they wanted to do. I went to engineering school and spent a bunch of money on college for that. And then I actually ended up going afterwards to law school, a Jesuit law school. And it was kind of when I reached this point where I'm like, I was living for other people and I wasn't doing what God was calling me to, which was I dreamed of helping men and help them with the same struggles I struggled with. And so I reached kind of this climax in a Jesuit law school where, you know, for various reasons, the values of the Jesuit law school didn't align with mine. And so I was kind of reaching this point where I'm like, you know what, I got to drop out. I got to do what God's calling me to, which is helping men go through the same things I went through, which at the time really was just fitness. I had lost weight and competed in competitions. And so I was like, I want to help men just like me. So Catholic dudes get in shape. The reason is because when you start to kind of align your healthy habits, everything gets better. It makes praying the rosary a bit easier. It makes it a bit easier to go to adoration, makes you feel a little more confident. It's like a great starting point to really help men. And that's kind of what springboarded my business.
Listening to God's will and it really does help, because if you don't, you're like pushing against the grain and it makes life so much more difficult.
Yeah.
How do you define the relationship between like a healthy body and a healthy mind, and especially a healthy soul?
Yeah, so I think the key is temperance. I help guys. You hear about a lot of these fad diets out here of like keto or restricting carbs or removing the carnivore diet where you only eat meat. Everything I teach people is, I call it eating like a Catholic, which is we go out to events, baptismal parties and get-togethers at a parish, and you're not going to be eating like that. You're just going to be eating all the different types of food out there. And so what I teach is just temperance, just in the middle way. Eat a little bit of protein, carbs, fat in moderation that's conducive to your goal. And so I really do. And the key is temperance with the exercise too. It's not so much that you have to crush it 6 days a week in the gym and just kill yourself every single day. It's more so 3 days a week, every week for 3 years compounds into insane progress, rather than, just having to go absolutely super hard. That's not how it goes. So I teach consistent temperance. I think that's what leads to a healthy body. And I presume priests would say the same thing about prayer. It's not so much about getting in the best prayer session. It's about going to do it every day. And then that compounds. So
Kind of reminds me of when I like see all these devotionals and I'm like, I'm going to do this novena and I'm going to also do this novena and this novena at the same time as while I'm praying the rosary. And it's just like you overdo it and then you just stop doing it altogether. Kind of like exercising, like I'm going to exercise for like 2 hours, going to lift for 2 hours every single day. It's just not going to work out.
Right.
So that's very important. But you're listening to Morning Joy, where truth matters. I'm Keith Downey, your host, and we're talking to Catholic fitness coach Joe Jarrell and why it's important to be strong in faith and body. Joe, what are some practical ways our listeners can incorporate the Catholic faith into their fitness routines?
One thing definitely recommend is saying a quick prayer before you work out. It kind of orients your brain to, we don't always love to work out. It's uncomfortable. It hurts our muscles. If we pray before we work out, it kind of reminds us why we're doing this thing, which is to treat our body like a temple, to push ourselves physically so we can grow, all these things. It kind of reminds you to give it that good effort before you go into the gym. Mm-hmm. But I think another thing is to remember we're doing this to show like a reflection of what we believe is true, which is we do believe temperance and discipline is a virtue that brings us closer to Christ. And so we want to practice what we preach. We want to show the world, hey, I really believe these values. And that's why I practice temperance, because I do think it brings me closer to Christ. And when non-believers see that, it speaks volumes, I think.
Do you have any exercises or routines that you find effective for both physical and spiritual health?
Yeah. So the big thing I always recommend is it can be, I always recommend killing two birds with one stone. So we know we have to pray every day, and we know, like, getting our steps in, walking is super beneficial. So if you guys are ever walking, and I do recommend like 10,000 steps a day for just any human, pray the rosary while you do it. They'll about
Mm.
align the same time. So always, if you got to pray a rosary, just stand up and do your steps and walk while you pray a rosary. It kills two birds with one stone. If you guys just walk 10,000 steps a day, but every day, you'll see great results, even without going to the gym. It's really cool.
That is cool. It just reminds me because we try as a family to do kind of a walking rosary, and it's like about 17 minutes, and I'm assuming that's probably around 10,000 steps because sometimes we have to kind of reorient ourselves because our toddler's running around the streets, so we have to kind of okay, all right, let's come back to this and then continue our prayers. So that's very good advice. Now, I'm sure there are people out there that might be new to fitness. How can they maybe start building a routine that supports both physical and spiritual goals?
Yeah. So I would say the number one thing in fitness is nutrition. It's about 90% nutrition. And so you can see massive results without ever stepping foot in the gym. The gym can be kind of intimidating if you're new,
Mm.
not knowing what to do, all the machines. So what I always tell people is start in the kitchen. You probably know what foods you probably shouldn't be eating. So start removing stuff from your pantry. Start trying to eat a bit more protein. Start doing a little research and fix the diet first. And then all you have to do to start in the gym is the machines. And I know a lot of people think the machines are harder, but actually, if you go to the machines, they show you on the machine what to do, and you can't mess it up. It only does one motion. So
Mm.
they're highly effective, and you can just stick to those until you start to become more and more experienced, because it is a journey. But yeah, if you just
Mm.
dial in the fitness, I'm sorry, you dial in the nutrition and stick to the machines, you'll see amazing progress.
Wow. Can you share a story of a client of yours who experienced like a significant transformation in both their physical and prayer lives through your coaching?
Yeah, definitely. I was seminarian in St. Patrick Seminary in Mendel Grove, so California. He was a pre-theology when he started with me, so pre-theology 2, and now he's theology 2. Um, so 2 years, and he was a little, typical story. He had gotten the dad bod when he went to school, and he ended up really getting into fitness, started a workout like group at his seminary in Mendel Grove. So they have like a group of guys in the morning that now go work out, and they like pray together, and they kind of like look to him for advice because he got pretty built, lost the fat. And it's cool because like that's a hope God willing, it's going to be a priest. He's going to shepherd souls, and people are already looking to him for leadership and influence just because of his
Mm.
physical change. It kind of like spread out across the seminary.
Wow, that is incredible. So yeah, you kind of mentioned a little bit, but for those that are maybe with families, it's really a challenge to find that extra motivation to get in some exercise, even prayer. How would you like? What kind of advice would you give to someone to stay motivated and maintain that spiritual and physical health?
Yeah. So you eat an elephant one step at a time. You don't need to do an hour workout. If you did 3 workouts a week, 30 minutes a session, that is plenty if you dial in your
Mm.
nutrition. And so if you, instead of saying like, oh, I got to start a whole new workout routine, just think, can I fit an hour and a half somewhere in my entire week? 30-minute chunks. We can do that. And just start there, because we don't need to go crazy. Most people are trying to lose body fat, which means the biggest driver is nutrition. So that should make, and same with prayer, right? Maybe one of those 30-minute sessions is a walk and you pray your rosary. So we can start to see how it can kind of be less daunting if we break it up into these little chunks. And that the
Yeah,
devil's in, the progress is in the tiny steps week over week.
that's true. It's yeah, once again not going full blown into something this routine that it's unobtainable or you're not able to stay consistent. And so yeah, consistency too. I can see both with the prayer life and also the physical element of lifting or exercising. Any lasting words you'd like to leave our listeners as they start their morning?
It's okay to mess up. It's not about how much you fail or miss the workout. It's about how much you get back up and try again, to eat clean, try again, to hit the gym, because stumbling forward haphazardly for 3 years leads to progress. But if you quit, you don't make any progress.
Oh, great set of advice. Now, obviously, we can find more information about you and your work at Joe Jarrell _ on Instagram, because I'll find you on YouTube. Is there anywhere else where people can find more information about, starting an exercise routine or trying just to be a little bit better in their health?
I would say, no, most of my stuff is on Instagram, Joe Jarrell _ or YouTube, Joe Jarrell. I do a lot of good habit building techniques and tips for learning about that. So feel free to check that out. And yeah, the world of fitness can be really daunting. There's a lot of info. And so I actually give advice on which channels to kind of check out and learn about. So feel free to check that out on my channels.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Joe, for joining us this morning. I know a lot of listeners out there really picked up what you're putting down. No pun intended. But this is pretty much it for Morning Joy, where truth matters.